Recording in progress.
All right,
And I hadn't heard.
let me
anything
start the
from
recording.
Kim. Let's call. Thank you all. And first order of the business, in terms of attendance, we have member Lauren Sardi. We have Kimberly Brinton, we have Leslie Higgins Biddle, we have Tom Mabry joining us remotely. We have Lena Frazier, CEO, and we have town planner Hiram Peck, and we have Alex Hutchinson, member. First order is review and approval of minutes from our last meeting, which I thought became a pretty nice meaty meeting. We didn't know what we were gonna do, Leslie. We had to kind of navigate
We got
around.
to do something interesting without me, right?
So, has everybody had a chance to look at this yet? Or if you need a minute, let me know.
Did you send those out?
I just sent that on the link. I just sent the link like about half an hour ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
They weren't attached to the.
Oh, you went
No,
over
they
the
weren't.
draft map.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
yeah. Oh, yeah, so this is.
That's okay.
I'm done.
So Tom, do you have it or?
I just haven't looked it up yet.
Okay,
We can wait to. Just we can approve them later. Let them read.
yeah,
Is he gonna? Yeah.
okay. We'll come back and do that.
Although,
You got.
right, because you wrote them. No, Lena
I
wrote them,
agree.
so we have a quorum. You could approve them, or you could wait.
Well, he could also abstain.
I have to, because I wasn't here. All right. But you got three.
Well, we'll come back. Let's jump right into the agenda. So, by way of background, Leslie, kind of talk a little bit about some of the experience you've had. I think I've tried to capture it a bit, but I don't know if I've done that
Okay.
justice.
Yeah.
Do you want to share the document now? Or no?
Yeah, you might as well put up the first one, but basically, I always get the feeling it's somewhat frustrating, because I retired in March 2020, COVID time. And ever since then, the kind of, I think, growing pressure and discussion about the need for affordable housing is growing, which is a good thing. But there's this, I would call it somewhat hidden story of great success in building new affordable housing that people are simply not aware of. And it was something.
I think we probably can, they should be done.
You want to go listen?
I think it's over.
Really?
Do we have black smoke coming up?
That's gonna be in the minutes.
Or is that supposed to be white?
I was gonna
Yes,
say,
I
wait,
got
yeah, okay, thanks.
Whatever it is,
It
but.
betrays
There's
something in
something
your
that you wanna know
understanding. Essentially, the group I worked for believed in local determination. And so my work, it was a nonprofit nationally, it's called, as the name implies, Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC. And it was created largely to help local people in urban neighborhoods who wanted to improve their neighborhoods by doing rehabilitation, home ownership development, to tackle problems in their neighborhood, all related to physical redevelopment. And I did a lot of that work through my career, but over time, there also was this initiative, which we called Housing Connections, that allowed small towns to use our services free of charge as technical assistance, and suburban communities, and essentially to do two things. One was to develop an organization in town that would be interested, like a land trust type thing, a nonprofit, a little local group of people that were interested. And that's organizational development in the sense of are there people that are really passionate about this, that want quietly, often in partnership with the town, but separate from municipal control, to think through building something? And how would they go about that? So that just like people that get passionate about a land trust or some other thing, that they aren't, and they work with the town, but they're not exactly part of the town government. These little groups all around the country, not the country, the state, have been successful in building affordable housing. To me, the success has always been the fact that nobody knows it's affordable housing because the local community designs it, has it built, owns it, the whole from A to Z kind of thing. And people just think it's part of the community. So it's nobody, quote unquote, coming in from outside, which to me, that's not a big specter. I mean, you do have to, if we're part of a state, we're not all on our own little communities only, but it's led by local people. So the first flyer thing up there that I sent around was just that, if you go to the other side of that one, there's a map. And I'm sure, Hiram, you know a lot of the groups, right? I mean, that was our work in about
Is it really?
2015 or something.
No, do we have this?
You should.
Is it from last week?
That was
Yeah,
from
that
May,
looks- I
that
have
was
a
from,
hard copy if you wanna look at that.
was from the meeting in May, but I could.
Yeah,
I probably have it.
I sent it around as a, and this was back, what, 2018?
Mhm.
So the kind of, you can see the concentration up in the northwest corner. And the concentration to some degree in the center, and then again over in the southeastern part of the state. And in each of those cases of the green ones, something was built, and it could have been 20 units, could have been 15 units, could have been 40 units. But it was whatever the community said. Is it the need for the elderly? Is it the need for first-time homeowners? What's the need? Let's go try to make it happen. It's a program that between 20 and 2024 kind of went on hiatus, frankly, because I left and because COVID hit and nobody was out meeting with little groups in towns at that point. But it has been revived, and I've been in touch. They've asked for my help to set it back up again, and it's got good funding and it's available.
So I noticed that Bethany got TA. Was that for Rocky Corner?
Uh-huh,
Okay.
uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah, it wasn't, I said personally, I didn't think I should do that in my own town, so I didn't provide the TA, but one of my colleagues did, and it was essentially just some hand holding, because they thought, frankly, they knew what they were doing. So they didn't, you have to want the help, and feel like it's useful to you. But the goal of the organization, I mean, the organization I worked for, LISC, we didn't, we were paid to go do this. We didn't get anything out of any of the projects. We never had a stake in any of them financially. And that kind of, I think, really helped us be helpful. Because we could just basically say, hey, Bethany, you should talk to the people in Norfolk. This is what they did. And just listen to them and see if you can learn. Take a road trip to see a few things and see what's out there. I don't know how much you want to get in the weeds, but it used to be that towns could get housing authorities set up, which for those of us in small towns, it's, you think of urban housing authority kinds of things, but back in, I don't know what it was, I remember probably the 70s and 80s. And really after World War II, housing authorities were set up in most of the suburban communities to do veterans housing after people were coming home from the war.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of those, but they would be appointed by the selectmen or whatever, whoever the local town municipality was. And most of those are either very quiet or haven't built anything in 30 years. So that was sort of one state supported model. This one is not supported by any public money per se. It's just a way of people achieving a goal if they want to locally. Am I talking too much? Does this make
No.
sense?
No,
Okay.
no.
I would say in general, the groups tend to be, the boards themselves, 5 to 10 people at the most. And you don't, in some ways, and this is my prejudice, but you don't have to know anything about building. In fact, building affordable housing, while it's bricks and mortar, the only thing that makes it affordable is the financing. It's the same thing as anybody else building something. But people that work for for-profit entities often find it hard to walk into a nonprofit setting doing affordable housing and change their hats. Because for-profit housing tends to streamline a product to have the most efficient, effective way to reduce costs, to have the same crews, to have things very much the same with adaptations that are largely superficial to meet a need, but, or to meet a look, but that is an effort to do something that is going to provide the greatest yield to the developers. This kind of housing, you want to control costs to the degree you can, but you're not there to try to create the largest profit for yourself. There is no motive in it. So you're basically, you know, like the one on the left, the Northfield Firehouse, that was a firehouse that was defunct. And I think it has 4 units in it, maybe 5.
So they don't have to be big developments.
They
can be
aren't.
small.
They aren't.
Nice.
The one in the middle, Liberty Place, is a brand new, meaning ground up new construction one. But you wouldn't necessarily think Clinton, Lynchfield, Kent was an old farmhouse.
That looks like just
Yeah, it
like
is.
any house.
Yeah, and they put a little addition off the back, like, you know, how the L's would work in an old farmhouse, and then there's another one. And then they bought the place next door and took the barn and did that one, and they become part of the landscape, the fabric.
So you may be getting into this, but
Any questions are good.
the money behind getting things organized, is it totally volunteer? At some point, somebody's got to put money on the table and say, we're gonna make this happen.
Sure. The part, I like to split it in my mind between organizing. The organizational development is relatively cost-free. I mean, I helped groups get their 501c3 and it might have cost them $500 for something, you know, that kind of thing. So getting the organization established is relatively minor money. When I was involved in the program at LISC, we had small grants. We would give grants to groups so that their initial costs if they wanted to have an attorney, just give them some advice and do some bylaws and stuff like that. Or they would get it from their local, whatever, you know, foundation or something. So it's not a costly thing to get organized in any sense of the word. Once you start to think, this is what we need, this is what we want to build, what type of housing, then, and you want to go to the second thing, which is this very bizarre chart, but I find it extremely useful.
What is the other one?
Can you see it?
I don't see it. So I downloaded it.
It's a complex chart that you will see if you see it.
Are these local groups?
Yeah.
Are they an effective vehicle to be able to go after grants and funnel money through?
Yes, because they're a private, not-for-profit organization. And in fact, some of the state financing for affordable housing
This one, right?
is only, yeah, can you turn it sideways?
Yeah, okay.
Is only available for private not-for-profits, or
Okay.
at least there's a sort of,
As
incentive.
opposed to if the town of Bethany was trying to apply
The
for
town
it?
of Bethany could not apply for it directly, basically.
We don't have this one, I don't think.
I emailed it to
Yeah,
everybody.
we
There it
did.
is. I emailed it out. And you have to ignore the fact it's,
Do you want a copy? I can make a copy really quick.
can you see it at all? Can
Yeah,
you
if
make
you
it
don't
any
mind,
bigger?
Sure, yeah, I
It'd
can.
be
fill
easier
it.
than trying to.
Just because
I
it's
have
tiny,
the
but I
page.
find it very helpful myself. It happens to be old. It's from,
Bigger?
no,
That's better.
that's good. And it can make it move up at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, a bit to the left. I'm gonna bother you, aren't I? There you go. Perfect. Thank you. And then I still need my
There you go.
glasses, right? This is, what I like about this is it looks like Greek. And this is honestly the complexity of doing something like this. It takes about 5 years to go from the left with the concept to an actual building on the right. And what you see here is, if you want to do this horizontally, see how it says project team, site architecture down the left, community government. That's horizontally all the way across through all those phases. And then if you look at it vertically, you see at the top, concept phase, it's what each of
Thank
those entities are doing during that phase. Feasibility phase, deal making, or actual project, acquisition and construction and operation. This may be for you. The reason I'm showing it is because it's not simple. It's complicated. But essentially, the groups down the left, the 4 groups show the distinctive roles. And by project team, that's the nonprofit I've been talking about. That's the entity that owns it, that is the local group that gets formed. And then you need professionals with architectural, you hire them. You know, you go through all that process. You need some kind of government support typically. I have helped groups like the group in North Haven had to go through 830G and had to fight it out. And it took them 3 years and they finally got it. They were in opposition over 12 units. But there are other groups who will come and say to the town, are you going to support this? And they'll say, why don't you file it as 830G? And then when we say yes, it'll be because we're saving money instead of we support it. You can see, and or you get groups that say, like the groups up in Litchfield County, the town say, do more, we won't fight you. Fit it within zoning and we'll be very happy. Yeah, the 4th group is the financing, which is the money. So are you starting to get a sense of what this shows you? Because in the first concept phase, these are the groups you're identifying and going to work with and sensing out, like, who are my professional team going to be? What kind of support can I get from my government? And where can I realistically find the money? I would say that there are very few out of the maybe 50 little local groups that I worked with that could actually pull off doing this on their own. So most of them either had a really seasoned consultant because it was only a small project, like 5 units or something, or they had an actual development partner, somebody who had been down this road before, often a nonprofit. There are professional nonprofit housing groups. And that's usually a better fit than a for-profit one because they don't want to mess around with 12 units and North Haven and fight with the government. But I don't know if that's your experience too, Hiram, there.
Yeah, I think pretty much it is. I think that I agree with you entirely that that's the type of group I think that would work best in Bethany anyway. And I think that smaller projects would probably be the best way to get people's feet on the ground and feel comfortable about it, so that the fabric of it, the character of it fits into the town wherever it's going to be located.
Yeah.
There's two basic things that are really, really important. Number one is figuring out how to acquire the land and hopefully at the least possible cost. Sometimes that involves a gift, sometimes it involves a simply below market sale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing is putting together the stack, you know, of how
The
the
financing.
money's gonna
Yeah, the
come
finance.
together.
Yeah.
And I think those are the key things and I think the support of the town saying, yeah, we support this, but we're not getting dragged into this, I think is probably the best way to do it here as well.
So I'm just trying to
Yeah, questions, please. Because
many pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this group.
Yep.
That is appointed by the town.
Right.
So technically, this group is
Mm-hmm.
town sponsored. This group could not be the nonprofit.
Right, that's correct.
Okay,
Individuals could
but
go
not,
off and be a nonprofit and also be here, but it's not the same thing.
okay. So we have that. We're advisory to planning and zoning.
right,
and I guess also Board of Selectmen.
yeah,
In terms of all of that, but we could be a good vehicle for developing that community support, the town support.
sure, there can be an educational function for this committee. If that's what you're saying,
Well, I'm also thinking, I mean, in my mind, one of the values of this group is we're offline from planning and zoning. We're not distracted by stuff planning and zoning has to get done. We can get deeper and better understanding to the extent that we have the trust and support of Board of Selectmen, planning and zoning. We can do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of working with the nonprofit and whatever, in terms of educating, communicating, making sure that the priorities and the values of the town are reflected in what kind of efforts might qualify. So I do see
yeah,
that there
definitely.
could be some good
Yeah,
synergy.
definitely. I mean, I think they're different. This is sort of a, to me, unusual thing, this group that's been created to give advice to P and Z. But there are other sort of analogous groups in towns, and they're not exactly the same thing, or they might be like the Northwest Cog with Joyce and stuff. They'll get together, and out of that room, there might be.
Hi, guys, excuse me one second. What time you guys, well, is everybody here coming to the meeting? So I can lock this door?
You can lock the door.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I lock everything, I double check everything anyways.
Well, no, I locked it with my phone, so I just, right now it's unlocked, and I lock it with my
Yeah,
phone.
as long as
It'll still,
we can get out.
oh, it'll still open and close, it'll just lock.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
no
All
problem.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Amadeo is the new first selectman, by the way.
Yeah, figure. Thank you. Figures, is the Republic.
White smoke box.
Sal. Who is that?
Sal Amadeo. He grew up here in town.
Yeah,
It's like
Was
used-
there
he used
eight or
to
nine
be a-
Amadeo kids, the youngest.
he used to be.
any
Oh, is he?
controversy
Yeah.
about that?
He used to be a procurement director
Manager
for his
for
town of
Wallingford.
Wallingford, so he has that experience,
Mm.
and it was between Sal Mateo and Carol Golder.
Right.
But then the 3 days passed, and there was up to the elected Republican officials to determine the next steps, so what's next. And let's see if there is a 5% after or not. Who knows?
So there was not agreement between the two selectmen on who the better candidate was.
Yeah, I am not 100% sure how that really went, other than that
I mean,
today
if there
was
was
going to be a
agreement there, it wouldn't
determination.
have to go to
They
the.
wouldn't have had to go to this group.
Yeah,
All right.
Hopefully this doesn't get contested because
Yeah.
yeah,
then there could be a special election, which
Yeah,
is
that's
ridiculous
what I
because it would be
and that's the 5%, yeah.
September.
Then in
What's that?
November, well,
This is all being recorded.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
No.
no,
Okay.
no,
It's, but
This is
then, but
democracy.
then it, no, but
Okay,
then
I
it
didn't-
has to be, then there'd be another election before the November election.
Which
It's
is
just a
crazy.
waste of resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
expensive,
And a
yeah.
sense of
Yeah.
being at sea a little bit, which
Yeah.
is never
So-
fun. for
and that's why I'm
government.
like, I don't know what's next. So, we have an interim.
We
for
just
now.
keep on going. Alex, are you saying though, back to your question, are you saying what role would this particular committee have about this kind of thing? Or are you saying,
I'm not worried about the role.
yeah,
It just seems to me that if we're successful as a group, we're going to develop a lot of knowledge. And Hiram is talking to some developers that have agreed to come in and talk to us. So if we start developing some expertise, some outside connections, we can be a pretty good conduit for sort of boosting this along. And if I heard you correctly, there's nothing that would prohibit a member of this committee being
not
part
at all. No,
Okay.
yeah, it's a completely separate, private thing to do
Okay.
this. It just would require, I mean, I've seen groups that start at a church because there's half a dozen people that get really interested in this, and then all of a sudden they wanna have a nonprofit, and they invite others up, but it starts there. It can
Right.
start anywhere if there's some will to do it, and I think, you know, I'm not entirely clear whether there's a will here, but I think, because it's work. That's why I did this, because and it's not my work, but it takes time and it takes commitment to actually be the one. Frankly, I think that from my experience, and now as a resident of Bethany for 35 years, it's often better not to be too public about it. It's often better to say, as a small nonprofit group, not to hide anything, but just simply to say, we're gonna do what we think is the right thing to do. So is it elderly housing? Is it first-time ownership housing? Is it small conversion of a building to a few rentals, because that's inexpensive and good for workers? I'm making this up.
Yeah.
But when that decision is made, typically if the group says, what we want is a lot of community support, let's go see if we can find town land. That's when the problems hit, and you have to expect that. The beauty of this approach can be that the group simply goes forward, not hiding anything, but not requiring the broad community support that you would hope people would have, but shouldn't expect they will, frankly. It's, for some reason, the language around this is incendiary to people, and there isn't, you know, it's not logical, but it is what it is. You know?
No, and
And I
I
think
mean,
the success, for example, like up in the Litchfield County
Yeah.
area, the success of smaller projects and the fact that they fit in, they work really well, I think has helped tremendously to sort of pave the way for moving forward. And I think
Mhm.
that's the small steps that are successful are really
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
I mean, from my own point of view, I've been very intentional not to have the word affordable
Yeah, I
in
know,
this,
I know,
because it has become
I don't get it, but yeah.
one of these targeted words of
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you know, you're gonna have some people certain attitudes, others with.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean, and the other reason from my point of view, we're not trying to chase 830G. We're not trying to increase the stock so that we meet the 830G
No,
minimum.
no, alright,
From my point of view,
we're not.
it is really all about how do we create a more sustainable housing environment.
Right, and how do we, from my point of view, maintain the one we have?
Right.
Because it does have still some economic diversity, some real cross-section and representation physically of housing type.
Mhm.
And what I've seen in my work, unfortunately, is the erosion of that in so many places. And once the market forces really take off, you can't stop it.
Mhm.
So to me, it's also preserving. And when I've gone out in my own time to talk to different groups, and people push back and say, well, you're taking something out of the market. Or you're deciding that keeping something affordable to people at a certain income level, it's not capitalism. It isn't, the market. And my answer to that is nobody objects to land trusts. Nobody objects to preserving open space, which is a major community asset. That's taken it out. But maybe people will, but they don't generally. Why? 10 houses? I mean,
That's also not capitalism either. That is not a purest form of
Right,
capitalism.
right.
So, I mean, it's like, you wanna argue, economic
I know.
theory with me,
I know.
you can.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
Bring it on.
yeah, I'm just like, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there's a fear of somehow you're playing with something here and you're forcing something, and it's not true. To me, it's preserving something.
Well, I
and the
mean-
viability of
It's making the
of
choice
town.
of what you want,
For-
instead of having it forced on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For the four members here, Tom wasn't part, but the original Housing Advisory
Yeah.
Committee. We had a very challenging
Mm-hmm.
time trying to get over a preconceived notion of what
Yeah.
affordable was.
Yeah.
And it's still
And-
around.
I mean, the reason I was disappointed that didn't work out, that he chose to leave, was it's so important. He does represent a voice of the community. And it's gonna be important that we don't disregard
Sure.
how people will look at some of this and try to figure out how do we engage and be able to, at a minimum, reduce opposition, if not eliminate
Yeah,
opposition to it. But, so my other question for either you,
Yeah.
Leslie, or Hiram, 830G is a dirty word, but has all the discussion over the last few years opened up everybody's awareness to the acute need that we have for more affordable, sustainable, whatever you want to call it, housing?
To the community, to the general public?
In
or
general,
General
in
public,
general.
or- okay.
I think what's happened is that the cost of housing has started to hit so many more people that people in general now experience it to be an issue for them, their kids, their parents, whatever. It's very cynical of me to say it that way, or very simplistic, but I think that's what it is. I don't think, the sort of public purpose aspect of what we've been talking about is widely shared. There's elements in each community that do share, and people that are very adamant about that, but, you know, honestly, Alex, I don't think, the reason I have appreciated 830G, even though it's like we're waving a red flag in front of a bowl for a lot of people, is it's a tool. It's a tool like good zoning is a tool.
Right.
Or it's one of those things that if a town, for the only reason that they would say no is that it was affordable, can't do that. And that's, to me, obvious, that we need something that says you can't do that.
Well, I think our experience on zoning has been, some of the projects that have come before us have
Right.
been inappropriate.
Right,
Mm.
right, and that's
And
why
that's why 830G is,
then becomes a
makes people
tool for
defensive.
the others. So,
Right.
yeah, right. And for myself, the biggest abuses I've seen on 830G have been people looking to make a profit on a very small piece of
Mhm.
property. And there is abuse.
remember the one on Peck Road?
There is
Remember well.
abuse.
Mm.
Yeah, there is abuse. But this kind of thing
Right.
is not, I
No,
mean, it's a tool for this kind of thing.
Well, that's the thing, I think, is the thought goes in ahead of time in terms of where it's located, the density that's appropriate.
Design.
I think that solves a lot of those questions, but I would absolutely agree with you 100%, Leslie, is that, people don't like 8-30G because they think it's, well, it's the state telling us what to do.
No.
So we figure out locally what to do and sort of sell it that way,
Yeah,
and that it addresses issues which in fact are becoming more and more.
yeah.
prevalent
I think the
every day.
other thing,
The other-
yeah, go ahead,
The,
babe.
the concerns that I have heard around is mostly in regards to, all right, this comes into existence, and we know that there is a percentage that needs to be made in regards to like the 80 percentage, what's that, median average of that? And then, which is the median income amongst the general town incomes, and trying to explain that to the community is what makes it confusing to them. Because they assume that once this comes in place, the families or people that are gonna be moving into these houses are people that are definitely not gonna be able to afford it,
Yeah.
not pay for it,
Right.
and not even be able to cover the taxes for it.
Right.
And they're concerned about, is like, how come we're gonna be end up paying taxes for these individuals that are gonna come in under this affordable housing,
Mhm.
which is hard to change the mindset, when it's not the case.
Mhm.
And one of the things that, the way I have understood it, is that you have to see it, by technically zip codes. And if you're talking about a place in Darien, people incomes is higher, and the average of that income, or to make it affordable, a house there is not, doesn't go less than $1 million.
Mhm.
So to make it
It's all
affordable, there probably
relative.
is gonna be
It's all
totally
relative.
different. It's relative to the medium incomes of house, general houses in town. So that's the part that has been hard for people to grasp in general.
Right.
And from my perspective, if you have to explain 830G, you've already lost the battle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
from my perspective, and you
Yeah.
talked about a tool.
Yeah.
Sort of interesting how one town has said, hey, file the 830G and that way we can approve you
That's-
and get by the. So that's one way to use it. The other way for me is if we can, working with planning and zoning, can come up with the housing plan and strategy that we
I
want
think-
for
I
our
think they
town.
just make sure.
It gives us a tool.
Mhm.
So when somebody comes to planning and zoning
Mhm.
and they're presenting and their threat is 830G,
Mhm.
planning and zoning can go back and say, listen, we have thought long and hard about this.
Mhm.
Here's what we're looking to get done.
Mhm.
Create the opportunity to either give them an exit ramp into something that can go
More
quicker
reasonable,
and more
yeah.
amenable to what we want, or force them through the 830G.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
to me, it seems like it's a valuable tool to be able to streamline it for a developer to say, okay.
Mhm.
And in the process, for us to be able to say, we want 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever it may be, deed restricted, meeting the definition of affordable,
Yeah.
but we don't have to get to the
Yeah.
30% or whatever.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we'd have to overcome, I like this way of going in and making a group and making it.
Yeah.
Making it what the town would support.
Actually want and
Right.
need, maybe, hopefully is the
Right.
point.
I think the other thing, just looking at where we've been
Yeah,
from our side of it is the overcoming, like, the people that, we had to approve Greenhaven and it sits there vacant. And
yeah,
That's gonna be the
yeah,
obstacle.
yeah, and it would have to be
Obstacle.
shown that it would be different
Right.
this time, if
Is there-
something happened, yeah.
Is there a way to take this and make it work there?
There are other issues with that property.
I know water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
The well
key
and the
thing.
septic.
That's gonna be tough to get into. So
Mhm.
at this particular point in time, what I would suggest is that we don't go there right
Shun that.
now.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
But there may be other things, other ways we can work through that right now. That's gonna be an expensive and probably a long process.
So
Yeah.
if there was a set, say there's a property that's available and we already have this group in place, can you walk us through what the
Sure.
steps look like, the next steps would look?
Like, I think whatever type of housing the group has decided to do is the
Okay.
key thing, right? So what is it from my Bethany, wearing my Bethany hat? I could really see starter houses myself, but that's me, but, that's not a group saying that. I could see purchasing a farm and doing a series of, I hate to take a farm. So
Yeah.
I don't want to do that, but if something were on the market that would allow you to do a very low scale farm-like look.
Well, look what's happening already with Norton's and
Yeah.
Asher. That's
Yeah.
gone, how many, 200 some odd years?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess my answer to you is that you have to assume there's a use and there's a property that would feel
Mhm.
like Bethany, the right thing to be doing. The whole process legally would be like for anybody who does real estate. You secure the acquisition by contract or by purchase. The financing is probably the trickiest part of all, but that's why you have the local group has a partner or a consultant who has already gotten the concept back here to align with what the priorities are for the state or used to be federal financing. Sometimes the town will do something just I'm not suggesting Bethany would, but, you know, small cities type stuff, if it hasn't used it all up. To do something towards the actual site development. But then it's a matter of, you assemble your financing, essentially, you hire your professionals, your architect and stuff. Until you have the money secured, the commitment in hand, if you will, it's interminable. So the length of time to get public financing is very different than somebody who goes, you know, with their bags of cash and their developer background and stuff. But I'm not sure if that's what you're getting after or what, but
Having
having,
what the next steps look like. I
Yeah,
assume
but-
it's that, and then you go before the town, and then.
yeah, I mean, if you look at this, it's, now you look at it vertically, you see the feasibility study, getting the site from the top down, you figure out what you need, what you're going at, what you're gonna build. Do a site analysis, get your site control, go in for design review. And get your commitments for your financing, and it's like anything else, really.
One more question, and then I'll.
Yeah, no, please,
Right,
please.
do people ever do these as a mixed population, so that you have
Yes,
some families with small children, and then you have
yes,
some elderly housing, which
Yes.
we know people want?
Sure.
That was hands down what was on the survey.
Yeah,
sure,
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely.
but you know, even if we could get something going on senior housing,
Seems a big thing.
that starts to get the market moving, because if we can put in, let's say, 12 units, and we get 12 local Bethany families that
Right.
say, I want it, that becomes 12 proper,
That are
potentially.
available for.
I mean, you gotta worry about Airbnb, you gotta worry about all the other
Yeah.
stuff, where people wanna hold on to it, they don't wanna let it go. And it doesn't become usable stock for somebody to buy.
But if you're gonna restrict it
Right,
as
and it's not.
affordable,
They can't do
they
that.
can't be doing that. And so that's, I mean, to me, I was thinking of the one up in Sharon, I don't know if you know Sharon Ridge, it's been around a long time, but it's very much a mix of people over the age, you know, elderly,
Mhm.
and with some services and a community room and all that stuff, and a bunch of young families.
Mhm.
And it's to me, a delightful mix of things, and they
Right.
did one 20-unit thing, and then they did another 20, because it was so popular, and that 5 years later or something.
So my biggest question about this.
Yeah.
Is, given the way the market is today,
Yeah.
if you had to wait 2 days, you're already too late.
Mhm.
So trying to get this all organized, it sounds like you have to get to the point where you've defined everything in terms of the site. You got the blessing of the community government, you got the financing ready to go up to whatever, $1 million. And then once you got that piece of land, you can close on it immediately.
Yeah, I think that's true, except each deal is so different, Alex. There's no formula for it. I mean, the group in, I guess it was Norfolk, like 6 years ago or something, they got a house given to them, 4 units. That's not gonna make much of it. I mean, that's hard to get money for 4 units. You can do it, but it's hard. It's not necessarily simple. And so then they went and bought 2 in the same neighborhood. So, I mean, you have to have a good, clear idea of who you're building for. And you have to have enough sense, like we all do, in the town, of where something might be about to be available.
So me, as part of the dynamic, if and when you find the right parcel and the right seller, that seller is now on your wavelength in terms of, I don't want this to go to market. I'm
Yeah,
not looking to maximize my profit on it. I believe in Bethany and I want to make
Yeah,
this
and a fair market value, but maybe not
correct.
go through the whole agony of whatever.
Not the craziness where people
Yeah.
are going in 10 and 20% over
Yeah.
market,
And yes, you have to get lucky too. I mean,
right?
to me, that's an issue that I've never seen a group that didn't eventually find a good site. It's just that you can't predict it. You just have to get your act together, figure out what you really care about doing, and have enough commitment around the table to try to do it.
Okay.
And get professional help. Nobody can do this without having that, yeah.
Sounds like people still out there.
And
Are they
have-
still here?
I assume you have to have the people in place too, so that when this does, you know, it's like properties come up and they don't last. You
Mhm.
have to be ready to move.
Yeah, you do, and the one, I mean, I would say the one thing that's not on here, because this came from California, but an equally hot market, sort of Fairfield County out there, Marin County. Pre-development money is the good stuff, because that allows you to put down on a property and secure it and pay for the architect to draw at least the preliminary, not working documents, but other things. So there are pre-development loans from various groups around the state too, from nonprofit groups that loan money, financing groups to this kind of effort, to a nonprofit. It's like a whole, it's like anything, like when my daughter started showing horses, you realize there's a whole group of people out there you didn't know existed that do that. Well, this is, you know, there's a whole business of doing nonprofit affordable housing development in the state of Connecticut. And supportive entities that, and people to go learn from.
A
So,
question?
yes.
Oh, Tom,
I, I'm thinking from all I've heard, it sounds like a good inside job. Gets a lot further along, than, you know, outside, developer pressure 830G. And an inside job looks like the kind of thing that, could get much further down the line, on its own. But in the end, the only place I end up with a question mark is if all that development work gets the properties found, the pricing's found, the design and nature of the entity that's going to be created. Does Bethany have the ability in zoning to respond to that in real time? That's my thought.
Yeah, I can tell you that. I was, one of the things I was gonna say is that the commission doesn't meet in August. So one of the things that I was thinking that I would be able to do is come back to the commission in this group in September with a series of proposed changes that we should integrate into the regulations. So I think we can respond in a timely fashion, Tom.
Okay.
I would say that, that's not gonna be the problem. I think the problem is gonna be money.
Yeah, the money
No
is always
question.
the issue. Like anything
Yeah.
else.
Regulations, we can probably get changed within 30 days, no matter what we try to do.
And you may not even have to. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's a slight setback issue or something. You just
Yeah.
don't know.
So you mentioned before, some of
Good
these
question.
groups come out of land trusts and things like that?
No, it just means that they're analogous to that in the
Okay.
sense that people seem to accept a land
But it
trust,
does-
but not a
It seems to me
nonprofit housing trust.
that
Specific
we
exception.
have a well-established land trust here.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah,
can
no
learn a
questions on
lot in terms of how they cultivate potential donors, or not donors, but people who are willing to go to them first
Mhm.
before they go to the market, which seems to be what this initiative you'd be looking for. Is you want people who want to see the
They see
community
this as
do
a
well.
good thing for Bethany, yeah.
Yep.
do you ever see these where they're owner financed
What do you mean?
of the property?
Tell me what you mean, Kim. You mean if somebody had a piece of property,
That they wanted to see developed this way?
yeah. Well, I mean, typically, I think that kind of owner would have to let it go at some point, right? Or would they just, and so are you saying they would finance it through the pre-development stage until they were taken out?
Right.
Yes, I have seen that. I'm trying to think of where somebody gave,
Or just
yeah,
building off of that. Somebody wants to sell 10 acres for $1 million. Reasonable, we have a plan, it seems to fit. They're willing to hold them.
that's what you see
That's
most
what
often. That's
Right.
what you
That's what
see.
I'm meaning,
Yeah,
what I'm
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
say.
yeah.
Correct, so that's
Yeah,
what I was, not so much you want them to help finance?
Yeah, right, so that's where I
More
got
of
that,
what,
yeah,
sorry,
thank you.
that's my,
Yeah, no, that's right.
Right,
That's right, and I have seen a number of those where the contract to purchase has, you know, a right to extend it, but only for another additional payment, you know, you kind of, you're buying time,
Right.
basically, rather than,
whether it's 3 or 5 years or
Yeah.
whatever.
yeah, or not
it's
even, I
finite.
mean, usually, but instead of a sale within 6 months or whatever, what you would expect to close on something,
Mhm.
it might be a year and a half, because you've got to secure that financing. But maybe the group
but that might.
pay
let
for
you get
carrying
started.
costs to you know, to put that on the thing at the end and stuff. Yeah, I have seen that.
Okay,
It's, you need to have a good seller. SEO.
so I'm keeping an eye on time.
Is that enough? This is a. Yeah.
No, I mean, this has been great. Do people want to keep the dialogue going a little bit more, or we're about 5 of 8 right now? We started a little bit late, so.
Unless we've been quiet, you didn't have any questions.
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, oh, I will ask.
Yeah, good.
I mean, if,
No, this is good.
okay,
I'm not going anywhere, so. We think of questions.
I have one question. Last month, we were trying to get mapping with a little bit more identifying, color-coded mapping.
Oh.
Has anything happened there?
So I have gotten in touch with the assessors, and they're still streamlining their final report of all the lands, and that needs to be forwarded. Once they provide that to me, that needs to be forwarded to GIS people to re-edit the map for us. Last I spoke to Betsy, she was actually busy because she had to do she's busy with the taxation aspects and all that. So she couldn't get to it right away, but
did they push back on any of the things that we identified that we?
I did mention to them, I said, I think it may be because it's identified on their system as such, and they did look, we're looking into it to try to actually make sure that it says it's not proper, particularly because when there is a multi-use or multi-owner type of, it just says multi-user or multi-owner.
Mhm.
So it doesn't identify specifically who the person is, unless you are digging into it a little deeper.
So I'm going back to our P and Z meeting last week.
Yeah.
John threw the idea out that,
John.
have we identified all of the properties that have warehouses / storage facilities?
Mhm.
And he wanted to develop square footage. So I'm just wondering, is there an overlap potential here with what we want? Because we don't really care about the
No,
warehouse.
because those units are private owners,
Mhm.
not town owners. So these are more like private owned unused lots.
No, I
Those are
get
things,
that.
yeah. So, but if I were to, I do have a reporting exclusively for what is classified as storage and warehouses. Mostly storage units, I think that's the general
Okay.
indication of it, but I did, Betsy does have a separate list for that.
Same basic idea, just separate.
Separate, yeah,
No,
yeah,
I get
but
it,
it's not
but
mixed, yeah. And I will double
You
check.
don't
I was
have
trying
to
to,
marry
I'm
each
trying to
other.
figure out if we could
Can
kill
you
2 birds with
imagine?
1 stone. And-
Becoming storage is affordable housing.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Well,
please.
we already know there are people living there, so.
Let's not even bring that up.
Oh, boy.
It's a lot of
It was an
other-
interesting
There's a
meeting,
lot of other stuff going on with that.
very interesting meeting.
Yeah, remember something like that.
It's a whole new open can of worms.
Minutes?
So a
Oh,
couple
yes,
of,
minutes.
anything else at this point? Before I forget, let's go back. Tom, you had a chance to review the minutes?
I opened it up and hold on just a second.
All right, I'm gonna give you another minute. We're gonna circle back so we can formally adopt the minutes.
when I tried to, and it said your connection's not private, and error, net certification authority invalid.
Interesting, because it comes from the website, actually, it is, if you go to the Town of Bethany website, there is a section called Agendas and Minutes, and that's the link from that website. So it should be public access to that link, to the specific minutes.
Maybe the
Might be
simplest
his
way,
firewall.
Yeah.
what,
Well, but there's three of us that.
yeah, the three of us, Tom, you could abstain, having not had a chance to read it.
Mhm.
So I'm just, gonna ask for a
So
motion.
moved.
A second.
Okay, those in favor of adopting the minutes from, our June 2nd meeting, say aye.
Right.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions,
Because I wasn't here.
Leslie and Tom
Mhm.
abstain.
Mhm.
Okay,
Good meeting.
just a couple of quick updates. Since our last meeting, Marie Polito from Rocky Corner reached out to me. She's aware of this group. Was she talking with you?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So she wanted to know more about the group, but then she specifically wanted to know, are we in any way focused on trying to do something Rocky Corner? So she and Brenda are very,
Mm.
they poured so much into that. They want to see something happen with it. So I did meet with her, trying to get a little bit more information and clarity. And I think Hiram has also been able to dig into this. But the long and short of it is that transaction with the group that wanted to do the veterans home and transition, that has fallen through.
Mm.
Hiram's got some additional information that indicates it's going to be at least another year of work and effort.
Is it really the infrastructure that's the challenge?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, water quality, water testing, proving that the system will work long-term. So that the water authority, once it takes the system over, doesn't have to put more money into it.
Uh-huh.
So that's what it is.
And the bank is still the owner?
They still are, correct. They're still hanging on. Yep. And no one really knows whether that's gonna continue or not, but right now that's the case. They are.
Hmm.
What if you did less units? I hate that we got so far with that and.
How many
I mean-
were there?
33.
Are built?
No, that was.
No.
No, but how many
No.
are built?
20 something, 28.
No, I mean, I think there were 22
Completed?
built.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
The community house was divided into another three, right?
3, right?
There were 2 more units that hadn't been developed yet.
Mhm.
And then there was the community center. So I think in total, it was gonna be 30 with the community center and or when they met with P and Z, they came back and said, we'd like to
It's my
convert
real
community
estate
center to
business
3 more units.
Mhm.
So one of the things I've talked with Hiram about a little bit is that if there are potential water quality issues. And Tom, you sent around that notification about the governor and funding cleanup sites and things like that.
Mm.
Ultimately, what I'd like to do is be able to, and I will now meet with our first selectman, now that we have one, to see whether or not either myself or anybody else in this group can get authorized to talk to the state on behalf of the town of Bethany about a particular property with the idea of finding out, are there state funds available to help clean up, aligning with the fact that we've got a property that's just dying to be able to be utilized. It's ready to go.
But does it need to be cleaned up? It's not a brownfield or anything.
No.
It's just probably,
Yeah, is the water bad?
it's just water, probably water
The water's
quality because
bad.
it's all ledge, right?
At one point, they were required to, they wanted
It's
a
still
waiver
recorded, so
for.
I'm not sure how much I want to say.
Okay, yeah. So there are some water issues.
Okay.
And the question would be, can we get the support of the state to help try to resolve those issues?
Mm.
Not to make them go away, but
Right.
to do whatever's
Mediate
gotta
them.
be done.
Yeah,
The housing authority?
So the idea is basically saying, we've got 22 units we'd love to put online. We can't because of this. If we need some state assistance to help us address the water issues, can we get those? And can the state take credit for waving the flag to say, hey, here we go?
even if it wasn't that many, if it was half of that, or it just
Mm.
seems like a starting. You know, there's so much down there.
Right. So in any case, I just wanted to make you
Yeah.
aware that I will attempt to try to get on the calendar with first selectman. And if necessary, meet with the
Tomorrow
board
might
of
be
selectmen.
Thursday. Don't know.
But, so the Rocky Corner thing is out there. Maria and Brenda are very, very committed. They're willing to work with this group if we feel there'd be any value there. In fact, Marie was a toss between coming to this meeting or going to the town meeting, and she went to the town meeting.
Yeah, but you could have walked down the hall.
Well, I told her
5
that we
minutes.
weren't, she wanted to know if we were gonna spend a lot of time on Rocky Corner. I told her, no,
Yeah.
we had a different topic, so. In any case, I just wanted to put that out there. All right. Any other items? Hiram?
So we're working to get the map updated, I think as Lena mentioned. I will continue to work through the regulations so that in September, when the commission comes back in session, we'll have some way to talk about that.
And you also had a developer you said would be interested in.
I talked to Bob Wiedemann, who's intimately familiar with Greenhaven, and he said, yeah, he'd be glad to come and talk to us. I said approximately September, and he said, sure.
Okay.
So that, and there's also another developer that I would recommend too, we talked to, but Bob said he would come first, and I didn't want to get any further than that right now.
And we're not meeting in August, right?
No. So, right now, what I envision at our September meeting will be cleaning up some loose ends, hopefully on the map. But also having Bob talk with us. I don't know if it'll be via Zoom or it'll come face to face, but
Yeah, not sure.
but we, as we've talked, to get some real live people who do development work in here and give us an honest assessment on the kinds of things that have to be considered to be able to get the attention of a developer that you want to talk to us. So I think that will be very useful.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
We're not meeting September 1st, right? We're meeting the second.
I'm
second
gonna,
Monday?
thank you. That's, our next
Labor
scheduled,
Day?
regularly
Sorry, guys.
scheduled meeting is Labor Day. So I'm gonna ask to push it back. So I believe that is the 8th, September 8th. Is that good for everyone to be able to do September 8th?
yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll do that with Will or somebody get that moved.
Do you have to motion for that? Or no, to move the meeting till September 8th?
I mean, technically you should.
You want a motion? I move, we move the meeting to September 8th.
Well, I think the way I was told was we're gonna notify that our regular meeting is going to be canceled. And then we're gonna file for a special meeting the following week.
Okay.
So,
Bureaucracy.
I know.
Yes.
Hard to believe there is one, but there are always.
Yeah.
Well, somebody the last thing, didn't even want to argue over why we use the newspaper for legal notices.
Yeah, we
Just because
we
we
had a
have
lot
to.
of, yeah, Wendy.
Do you wanna adjourn first?
That's adjourned, yeah.
Before any
So
further
moved.
discussion. If there's any further discussions, that's adjourn.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you so much. I almost hate that we're not meeting next month. I feel like we're getting a little bit of momentum, but, I think it'd be good to take a break, so. We have a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Yes, me.
I'll second, I'll
I
second.
didn't hear that.
I'll second.
Uh, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay,
Right.
Tom,
Good to see
I hope
you,
you're
Tom.
doing well.
Thank you kindly. I think I'll be in a lot better shape by September, but I'm looking,
Okay,
Enjoy the
Did
summer.
you have surgery?
Hey.
Yeah.
to you all.
Take care, Tom.
bye-bye.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Sounds weird, see you in September.